So let me just adjust your suggestion, because you seem to think that there is going to be an extended period of time at the secondary level, and that's not the case. This legislation is just ensuring that they have to remain in a formal school setting. That setting could be secondary school, it can be TAMCC, it can be Neuro, it can be St. George's University, it can be some other university, or it can be some NTA approved skill service provider. It does not imply staying additional years at the secondary level. So there's nothing that's going to change really.
Now, formal education within the English-speaking Caribbean can be traced back to the establishment of the Quadraton Grammar School in Barbados in 1743. Now, after more than 2 centuries of oppressive British colonial rule, the educational systems within CARICOM states continue to reflect the academic traditions of their former colonizer. Now, prior to emancipation in 1838, the notion of providing education for enslaved Africans met strong opposition from the human smuggling plantation captors, despite the efforts of many Christian missionaries seeking to provide religious education to convert enslaved Africans to Christianity. During the post-emancipation period, the education of ex-enslaved Africans within the colonized space of the Caribbean became one of the central issues of the day. Religious groups, some of whom also benefited from the enslavement of Africans, together with financial support from the British government and the Negro Education Grant, drove and shaped the development of education at all levels of Caribbean society. It was, however, not until the attainment of political independence in the formerly colonized British Caribbean that compulsory access to secondary education was made available for all students, despite their socioeconomic status. In Grenada, like some other English-speaking Caribbean territories, voluntary schooling begins at age 2, with compulsory schooling beginning at 5. Children complete compulsory education at age 16, and they have the option of matriculating at the TMI Community College or at other private institutions. Or they also have the option of opting out of the formal education system altogether by seeking employment elsewhere. Now, this is all about to change, as the administration in St. George's just piloted legislation to increase the compulsory school age from 16 to 17 as of the new school year in September 2024. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, as well as his compatriot Minister of Education David Andrews, in their contribution to the debate on the legislative change, said the amendment is part of their administration's thrust to reimagine education in Grenada. And Grenada will join Barbados, who in October of last year also proposed that all children be allowed to continue school until age 18. Dr. Ideme Denny in Barbados said that the Ministry of Education there also recognized that there are some children who would need more teaching time because they would not have achieved what most others have, owing to the level of attainment by the age of 16. Now, here to make sense of these changes is Grenada's Education Minister, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, who is also making his inaugural appearance on the Bub Report. Minister, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report, and it's a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Bob. It's a pleasure to be on the Bob Report. It's notwithstanding my inaugural appearance. I look forward to other engagements as developments unfold in the education sector.
Yes, absolutely, and this is a significant development, and the way that it was framed to me was it really gave me pause in respect of what happens to our students after they complete secondary school, because I suppose I was always under the impression that once you finish secondary school, everyone automatically goes to the TMI Community College, but that's not the case.
Certainly it isn't. And in fact, that was one of the driving factors that pushed us into that direction, because we wanted to make sure as a as a government, as a state, we had the opportunity to drill skills and further education into the entire population of students till they're 18. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So let us first and foremost talk about the logic behind raising the compulsory school graduation age. You just articulated here one of the justifications for doing so. But in
Right.
looking at the current infrastructure of education, when the student gets to Form 5 and when that student graduates, what are they missing in respect of the matriculation into early adulthood?
So Kellon, before I even answer that question as to what they're missing, I want to make
Yes,
it clear what the legislation is.
yes.
Yeah. So the Education Amendment Bill seeks to change the definition of compulsory school age from 5 to 16 inclusive to 5 to 17 inclusive. What that
Mhm.
means is that they will be in school till 18, right? So
Okay.
they will be in school all till 17 until they get to the 18th birthday, on which time they become an adult.
Mhm.
Then they will be obligated to remain in school. So that's what the act seeks to address. Now,
Mhm.
as it is, at the age of 16, the government, a parent, the Ministry of Education, none of these agents have any legal authorization to prevent a child from leaving school. So a child at 16, whether he completes secondary school or not, once he attains the age of 16 by the current Education Act, that child can, in fact, I lost you there for a bit, Kellon.
No. Go ahead. You may see me going off screen for a bit, but I'm here. Yes. Mhm.
That's fine. So that child, once the child attains 16 years, can leave school, even if that child is in third form or fourth form, even before they get to fifth form. Once they attain the age of 16 with the current Education Act, they can leave school and try to enter the world of work, or try to make other means of their life.
Mhm.
And that for me is a serious challenge. And to get back to your question, you ask what exactly are those students missing?
Mhm.
So from our observation and from our experience, and even before I get to numbers to share with you, we found that there are several young persons, usually between the ages 16 to 19, that you find disengaged, unemployed, uh, and in their words, they're looking for work. They are actually looking for employment in some cases, but they don't have the right skill sets, they don't have the right attitudes, they don't have the right approach. They're not employable, and the world of work
Mhm.
complains about that too. So we want to make sure that we don't give them the opportunity to, before getting fully skilled, to stay in school. So they're missing employability skills.
Mhm.
They're missing that opportunity to have work-related skills that will make them more marketable and a better fit for the world of work. So we are seeing this extension in the compulsory school age as an opportunity to further skill and to give them opportunities to become more work ready.
Mhm. I see. Okay, now let us talk about again. You say that work ready. What does the data say right now in respect of students who, let's say, they graduate in Form 5 in the respective high schools? How much of those students are absorbed, say, by the TMI Issue Community College, or who go on to seek private sector education opportunities, say at the St. George University, or who travel? What does the data say about that?
Right. So I could give some bit of the data in that regard. So on an
Yes.
average, within the last 10 years, from 2013 to 2023, we can get there's an average of over 1,600 students who graduate from secondary schools
Yes.
on an average. Some years it's a little more, some years it may be a little less for various
Hmm.
factors, who may travel, who may migrate, and those factors.
Hmm.
Uh, Generally, we can see that there's an average from TAMCC within the last 4 or so 5 years. We can see an average of about 800, trending towards 1,000 persons being absorbed in TAMCC, and specifically because we have introduced free tuition too And so we've seen uptake, stronger enrollment at TAMCC and at NULO.
Okay.
But within the age group that we have under review, between 16 to 18, within the last 4 to 5 years, we have seen an average of about 800 students going on to TAMCC on average. Some years, and in recent years, it's been more. But the average is about 800. So we're talking about, of the 1,600, 800 go on to TAMCC on an average. You
Just
have
about half of those students.
go
Yeah.
on to TAMCC. You have probably another 200, and in recent, again, we have not had all the data for NULO before. Now, NULO has had a remarkable journey within the last 10 years. And within the last, I know the enrollment has doubled within the last year, within the last 2 years, given our new pre-tuition policy. So, but the average here is close to 200, but I'm sure it's the last couple of years would reflect about 400 plus, right?
Right.
But we're still working with the average. So I'm saying within the last 4 years, 5 years, there's been an average of 200 persons, let's say. So you're talking about 8 and 2, 1,000 of those students are accounted for. You may find a trickle going off to St. George's University. Some migrate to other universities elsewhere. So generally,
and really, that is for those who can afford, right? So in other words, there still is a need to absorb that shortfall, that remaining pool of students who are not really, they're not going to TAMCC, they're not going to NULO, and so therefore that there is something that needs to happen there. Okay, all right.
Correct. And so you're talking about probably a 400 to 600 pool of students that we have to every year look for, try to engage, try to find meaningful engagement for. And I want to posit that previous governments have struggled with that very issue to the extent that they've tried to put together many different kinds of programs. Programs like the Imani and some of the other GET from former NDC administrations, that one, and the Imani from the previous government.
Administration, yes.
Yes, some of those have been born out of the very need to address this issue. But we recognize that we recognize that this is a systemic issue. And if we continue to have all these programs, we will still be needing to implement several programs, and the source of the problems are not being addressed. So we've moved to adjust the mandatory school age so that we will stem the flow of these students that are not engaged, not well tooled, not well skilled, and ensure that they're given these additional 2 years to remain in school and get skilled.
Now let us talk about curriculum. Now, how will the current curriculum be adjusted to accommodate that longer high school tenure? And in respect of what the grading process would look like, because right now we have Form 1 to Form 5, right, which accommodates those that gets to 16. But what would that look like?
So let me just adjust your suggestion, because you seem to think that there is going to be an extended period of time at the secondary level, and that's not the case. This legislation is just ensuring that they have to remain in a formal school setting. That setting could be secondary school, it can be TAMCC, it can be NULO, it can be St. George's University, it can be some other university, or it can be some NTA approved skill service provider. It does not imply staying additional years at the secondary level. So there's nothing that's going to change really at the secondary level. This legislation is simply to ensure that the onus remains on parents to keep their children in some form of education till they're 18. And the natural matriculation is to go on to TAMCC or NULO or St. George's University or some other foreign university or wherever they choose to go on in a formal setting. Or we are also engaging other skill service providers to assist in absorbing the entire population of students. So it's not about secondary school. So there's not going to be many changes in the curriculum per se at the secondary level at this point.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm saying it at this point because ultimately there will be changes in the curriculum to mainstream skills, because all that we are doing is part of a bigger plan. We have a national skills policy and a skills strategy. The skills policy was born out of immense consultations with all of the key players, the Ministry of Labor, the unions, the National Training Agency, NULO and TAMCC, who are traditional skill service providers and education systems. And with help from the United Nations, we were able to develop the national skills policy and a strategy to see us get there. That was approved by the cabinet over a year ago. And we have been systematically implementing elements of that. And so this amendment to the school age, the compulsory school age, is just part of that, because, and then there are other things like building centers of excellence, and mainstreaming skills in schools. When it gets to that point, we'd have to determine what changes we make to the curriculum in a more specific way, because the reality is the education system as it is cannot properly skill our students. Why do I say that? Skills education is competency based. It's about can-do skills. What competencies do the technical students really have? But we have a system where in most schools, people have a double period of 2 40-minute sessions to do practicals for those subjects. The reality is that won't get you to be as skilled as you need to be. So even if you do that successfully over 2 years and you pass the CAPE or whatever it is, when you go to the world of work, you can have a situation like has happened, where many of the employers will say, I need more competence from these people. I need them to be less theoretical and more
right, as opposed to just a certification, right? And we come from that colonial culture, and it is a colonial culture where I got 20 subjects, but what skills do you have with those 20 subjects? Yes,
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
So ultimately, there will be some changes there, but not at this point necessarily.
So what I hear you saying here is that when the students get to Form 5, they still have that option of graduating from that particular high school. Yes. But that following that graduation, there still is a requirement on their part to be able to seek out those other educational opportunities, whether by way of NULO. You said those centers of excellence. Let us talk about, sir, because we know that NULO is doing amazing work in respect of absorbing a lot of those students and doling out a lot of those technical skills that students have. But what would those centers of excellence look like? Where would they be? How would that process be rolled out in time for the implementation in September?
Right. So mentioning centers of excellence, we are not going to have all of them ready for September. Now, there are some we've identified, over about 10 areas that we have identified. We are currently negotiating with some schools. We want to convert a few schools to make them skill centers. So that is being worked on in the more medium term. More immediately, we do not need necessarily to have new centers of excellence to absorb the students. If we have continued intake with NULO, continued intake with TAMCC, we already have several certified providers with the National Training Agency who offer technical skills, and we are currently engaging a number of them. So, I mean, on the top of my head, I can call, there are those in administrative work like Grace Typing School. There are those coming on board to do music and to take them up to the Royal School of Music level, along with CSEC Cape Music. There are those that are doing apiculture and fish technology. So and those are certified. These programs are certified by the NTA. And so we are currently enlisting those people. There's Labukan Creative
Center.
Industry, So there are all of these different industries that we are engaging as a ministry right now, compiling a list. So we will work with them to make sure they have the facility, I know they have the program, and I know they have some measure of facility. But when we do the final assessment in terms of the numbers, we'll be able to determine how all of these fit, where the students go. But we are currently working with them, and we are confident that those agencies, those divisions will be able to absorb the students for this first outroll of this new mandatory and compulsory policy. Hmm.
Yeah, now let us talk about because again, you articulated earlier the role of programs like Imani, the role of TVET that we had earlier, and things like that.
Hmm.
What will happen with those programs? Is there an intention to eventually phase those programs out, or what will happen to those programs now that you're saying that these particular centers of excellence that we have in Grenada would be absorbing those students? Obviously, I do not know that the Imani program only absorbs students within that 16 to 18 age range. But what
Correct.
will happen to programs like the Imani program? Will there a reimagining? Probably, maybe I should not have said phased out. But would there be a reimagining of what that would look like now that we have compulsory education
So,
going up to a later date, later
so
stage in
certainly,
life?
certainly, I mean, I am not the minister for youth, so I'm probably not the
Yes,
best person to speak with authority on the matter. But I could
yes,
say I could see it certainly will impact. Now we are targeting this age group to make sure that we stem the strong flow of persons without skill into programs like those. So that if we stem the flow of persons leaving the system without, then programs like the Imani can better serve in the capacity that they were meant to serve it as a form of internship training to get you. And we have persons who have already passed the age that we cannot mandate to come back to school at this point.
right.
So the program will still be useful for several of those persons who are still young, who, although they can't get back in school, may benefit from several of the programs there. But that's for the Minister of Youth to talk about. But I could only see how the correlation between what we are doing here in education in relation to skills could impact programs like that. But for me, it's all positive.
Yeah. Well, when you speak to your colleague, the Minister of Youth, let him know that we have been trying to invite him to the Bob Report. We are fair to everyone. He's my good friend. He knows me very well. Senator the Honorable Jonathan Lecret, I'm speaking to you, sir. But so let us talk about, because again, Minister, I get very excited. I'm very excited about this topic because as an educator myself, in
Mhm.
respect of skills, I think, having those skills are so critical. And again, employers, as you said, are looking for those skills. Those are the conversations that we have at my institution as well. How do we equip our students to go there being not only theoretically well rounded and academically inclined, right? But how are they equipped with those 21st century skills that we need? So let us talk, Minister, about those particular skills that you believe the government should be prioritizing, that the society needs at this point. Is that something that you've thought about in
Oh,
respect
yeah.
of this change?
Oh, yes. It's something that we have thought about and we are actively pursuing. Uh, the skills policy, which I alluded to earlier, and strategy,
Yes.
they've mapped out a number of areas that will make our young people a lot more work ready.
Hmm.
The so we're talking things like furniture making. People in that industry will tell you there is a serious shortage of youth coming into that area and technical competence. The
Hmm.
people in construction, all of the major construction companies, literally, they've been asking us to do a construction school. So it's something that we've been actively considering because of the shortage. Many of the major projects in Grenada, they get stalled, and the contractors will tell you they get stalled because there's a difficulty finding reliable um, employees, young of the younger set, and that's a
Hmm.
challenge that we need to address. But we can't deny the issue of um, technologies. So one of the centers of excellence we're talking about is one for technologies. So while we've introduced coding, for instance, in schools, and we have launched technology clubs in schools to feature things like drone technology and coding and robotics and all of those things in schools, we want to have a dedicated center of excellence because we have a lot going on. The world is becoming a global space, um, and the opportunities for even things like cybersecurity and some of
Hmm.
those areas. So, a center of excellence for that. Then we also have things like fishing. There is part of the plan, a center of excellence earmarked for developing marine studies in one of our campuses, right? That's in Carriacou. There's the plan to do that. It's embryonic at the moment still, but it's in the
Hmm.
document, and it's one of the things because we find fishing is a significant part of the Grenadian economy, but we want people to do so from a place where they are well trained. They can see it as a business. They understand how to manage it, boat repair. So you're mixing all the traditions in there as well, but it
Mhm.
takes care of that cultural heritage part and the economics of it as well. And then we
Mhm.
have agriculture, Center of Excellence for Agriculture. Agriculture is a key part. So the Maribor Farm School is also part of that. So we have sports. We don't have a dedicated sporting school. So there are a number of areas within the policy. Now we cannot do all at the same time. So at the moment, we are currently working with, there's a furniture, the national, I'm not sure I'm getting the name correct, but they produce furniture in Snell Hall, and it was an institution that was born from under the former administration. But we think there's a
Mhm.
lot more potential to do more there, to teach there, to because the training component has never started in that facility. So we are
Mhm.
working to upgrade it, and that's a low-hanging fruit that we can actually make into a center of excellence that it is. This very setup that I'm using was made there.
Yeah.
Um, the desk and
Mhm.
all that. So they do wonderful work, but the teaching component has never started. So we see
Mhm.
that as a low-hanging fruit that we can engage, put
Mhm.
in the AutoCAD, put in the computer lab to be able to teach effectively while you do the practicals there too.
Mhm.
So all of those are envisaged, and it's just that we are going to flesh them out bit by bit. We can't just do all of it once, all at once. So we kind of doing it systematically and step by step as we
Right.
go.
A phased approach there. Two final questions, Minister. Now, uh, your colleague, well, she's also your MP. That's Emmeline Pear. I'm sure
Yes,
somebody you know very well.
yes.
She expressed concern
Mhm.
in her contribution to the debate, not wanting to oppose. In fact, they indicated that they welcome the change, which, by the way, incidentally, would also adjust legislatively adjust the Employment Act, which we can speak about as well. But she expressed concern that no consultations were held with the relevant stakeholders and partners in education or in society in respect of this change. That it just came out of nowhere. Is there a reason why there was no consultation held, or perhaps there was consultation held and we were not informed about it as the national community, only to hear it in Parliament?
Well, the truth is, the very document of which that's a part, the National Tibet Strategy and Policy, there was strong consultation. That is an element of that document which was consulted upon significantly by all of the stakeholders, including NTA, GNAB, and um, Chamber of Commerce, and all of those entities. So that was part of the document, and the document was only approved after the consultation, and it got to cabinet after all of that. It was finalized. So there was an
Mhm.
element of consultation in the preparation of the document, and this element is one of the pullouts from that document, which was approved since last
Mhm.
year. Since we got
Mhm.
into office, we were talking about enacting that. So it's not a new statement. It's not come out of the hat, but I could appreciate if we go when we go into implement it, and we do have a plan to do that. We need to engage students um, just to look at the nuances that we may need to adjust in its implementation. But I can't
Mhm.
agree that there was no consultation, because the very document from which it was taken was a document that was extensively consulted upon with all of the stakeholders, the Chamber of Commerce, the NTA, and the schools themselves,
So
Neuro
the
and
teachers were also part of this process as well, is what you're saying. The Union of Teachers?
I would have to check to make sure, but the Chamber of Commerce was there. I
Okay.
think probably, yeah. So most likely they would have been a part of that too, because at that
Hmm.
level, the umbrella bodies are often engaged.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I
Okay.
want to point out too, though, that it's not we're not asking teachers to do anything that's different or
Hmm.
anything that's outside of their scope. We're just saying that students have to continue to remain in a school-related setting
Hmm.
for a longer period of time. So, yeah.
Okay, very well, very well. And finally, Minister, of course, your organization, you're celebrating 2 years of governance. Again, the vision of education, I suspect, is also part of the Sustainable Development Goal, that long-term development plan that not only this current government spoke about around independence. Um, but also the previous administration, they were the ones who also, by way of introducing it to the national community, they introduced it to the national community. The vision that you have for education, uh, let's say we're revisiting education in your fifth year of governance, when you come back on the Bob reports in your fifth year, as you prepare for another election, what would that vision look like, and what do you hope to be a legacy coming out of your service in that ministry?
Well, for sure, increased access. I mean, and we've started on that path. So we've taken away the fees, the games fee, the lab fee, both at primary and secondary. We've taken away those to improve the access. We've removed the tuition policy, the tuition fee at TAMCC and NULO, and the government pays that now, so that more young people get the opportunity to access. We are moving speedily. We have a goal to have at least one university graduate in every household. And we know that's a huge task, but we are working towards it. And certainly by the time we get to the next 5 years, as you mentioned, I want significant numbers of families to feel the impact of that. In fact, we have a cabinet submission that's coming for first generation university students very shortly, and it will be shared with the public in short order. So that, and then I want to see education adjusted where we no longer see skills as a taboo subject, where we don't just see it as, well, you can't do the math and you can't do the academic stuff.
So
So
therefore, you're dunce,
yeah,
pretty much.
I want to see that
I
change.
agree with that.
So I want them to recognize that the real engineers come from that skill base too,
Mhm,
and it's a technical area. And so our brightest students need to feel that skills is a genuine pathway, and we want to change that. So we've been talking about that, we've been preaching about it, and our policy decisions are aligning to make sure that happens. In keeping with that, we want to mainstream skills. But that would mean you see the things where everybody's doing 15 and 20 subjects and all of that.
yeah.
It creates problems in my mind. I mean, so there's some background of that.
It's also expensive too, really, if you think about it. The
Yeah,
cost of a subject, look, the cost of a subject for bragging rights. I mean, and this is no disrespect to the folks who have all of their subjects. Sorry, I only graduated with 6 subjects. That's what my working class parents could have afforded at the time when I did, right? And I don't even use a lot of those subjects now
correct,
in
correct.
my professional life,
And
So
not
yeah.
only that, but the how stretched the curriculum is proving to be a problem for finding time to be able to insert some key areas. We've gone on to introduce Canadian history. There are other things that we're keen on seeing in the curriculum, but with the clutter that we already have to facilitate the 30 something different areas that somebody must choose from, it makes it
Mhm,
difficult. And then there is no sound and solid pathway within the mainstream of education to accommodate skills education to the point where they can be sufficiently skilled and they can have real access to the industry to practice their skill. So there's some changes that need to take place, and I would want to see that happen under my tenure within the next few years. So you ask me what my legacy; those would be some of the things I would want to see in there. So access, financing, repositioning of skills within the mainstream of education. Early childhood is another huge part. We're paying good attention to what's
mhm.
happening down there too, because if we tackle the reading and the numeracy and literacy concerns at that level, then it becomes easier for us to deal with the other issues higher up the grades.
Mhm. And Minister, may I also suggest, I mean, maybe it's not my place to do this, but this year CXC dropped agricultural science on the idea, the justification that it's a non-performing subject. I mean, and that to me is just an insult to what our economies should be based on, which is food security, right?
Yeah,
So I think within that context, there must be a conversation around looking at agriculture in the context of agribusiness as well as looking at it in the
correct,
context of agronomy and food security as well.
correct. Well, so
Yeah.
let me allay your fears. The ministers of education within the region, the
Yes.
member territories, did convene a meeting with CFC officials, and that
Okay.
decision has been reversed.
I
Yeah,
saw that. Yes, which was
was
good.
reversed. But the truth is, um, it was the CXC double award that
Mhm.
was that was being considered for discontinuation, not the general agricultural science. So the double award, but none of them is going to be withdrawn. But we had deep concern too that areas like green engineering were
Mhm.
down for discontinuation because they were not being taken up as speedily as possible. Because, as you
Mhm.
quite rightly said, we articulated that those areas are critical to our developmental priorities within the region,
Mhm.
and not just Grenada,
Mhm.
but across the entire Caribbean, across the entire region. So CXC, as a creature of our governments across the region, ought to be in greater sync with our developmental trajectories and support us there. But I think the message was made clear, and they are committed to doing that.
Okay, Minister. Well, it was certainly a pleasure having you here on the Bob Report, sir. And certainly, we do look forward to seeing what the implementation of this new program would look like. I know that Barbados as well is also looking at extending that compulsory aid. So I suspect that that is a conversation that might not only exist in Grenada, but other ministers of education across the Caribbean. And the Caribbean is looking at ways of really reforming its education system.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, I think it's heading in a direction that several of the more advanced societies have gone to, because they recognize the need that if for the education system to churn out persons who are more work ready, and I think this is key. Societies like Germany and the Netherlands and some of those places where there is zero unemployment and the education system feeds the world of work.
Yeah.
And so this legislation puts us in a better place, sets the framework to begin to do that a little more effectively here in Grenada and bridge the gap between the world of work and the product of the education system.
Senator the Honorable David Andrew, thank you for appearing on this week's edition of the Bug Report, sir.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Absolutely. Very well. Viewers and listeners, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, Grenada's Minister of Education, articulating how and why Grenada intends to move forward with raising the compulsory school attendance age to 17, well, which really would be 18 because the students would be graduating when they get to that age of 18. This is the Bub Report. We'll be back for the second segment of the program. Please stand by. Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the Bub Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.